Okay, what are you going to ask me? I was
More
married
beer.
then.
When you was 20, you was married?
I was married, I think, wasn't I 19?
Dang.
And
I didn't know
I
that.
would just said, hope I have a good life here.
All right. Had a pretty good one.
Yeah, I did. I would think probably in my 60s and 70s.
The hippie years?
When you were 60 or 70 or the 60s and 70s?
No, when I was that age.
Okay.
But it'd been back 20 years ago. And that'd be like when Dad was here, because we had a lot of fun dancing. I never had any inkling of ever going to college.
Really?
Did you graduate high school?
Huh? No, I didn't graduate from high school.
What was the most school you went to?
Huh?
What was the highest grade that you went
11.
to? And then you just stopped?
I'll tell you why I stopped. My mom had to go to the bank, and the bank in Salem. Well, just a little bird, because we lived at Burden.
Yeah.
And she wanted to go to the bank, and so she wanted me to drive her down to the bank. So I drove her down to the bank, and I thought, gee, this is nice. So when I got back, I never went back to school. That took care of it right there. And I always blamed her for that, because she should have said, you get back to school.
Yeah.
But she was the one that took me out in the first place.
Why didn't they tell you the next day, you know, you're going to school?
Right.
Why didn't they?
I don't know why they didn't.
Did the rest of them all go to school and graduate?
No. I think maybe Doris did. I'm not sure.
Babe didn't graduate either?
Yeah, she might have, but Martin and I didn't.
So what'd you do then?
Huh?
What'd you do then? Instead of go to school, did you have to work? 14, you draw.
Well, I don't know what I did. I guess I just kind of loafed and had fun.
Well, how old were you then? You probably got
I'd probably
married.
been about 15 or so.
Oh, you had to be, what grade was you in?
She said 11.
11th, so you had to be more than 15 if you was in 11th. You'd have to be
Well,
at least 16 or
Yeah,
17.
because
you
I
were
would-
driving, young, had
Yeah,
to
I
be
was
16.
driving.
Did you have a
Of course,
license?
you didn't have to have a license or nothing back then. You just got in the
Grandma
car and
couldn't-
went.
Grandma couldn't drive?
Evidently not. No, she did. She didn't drive till way later in years, and
I don't remember ever driving.
yeah, we had that old Model T, and I remember we went out one time and we was going over to Coleman's, whatever her name was,
Oh, yeah.
and Aunt Mabel was with her, and I was in the back, and we was going over there, and when we come back, we had this old Ford, you know, and so we was going up this hill, and it was kind of running out of juice. Aunt Mabel thought. So she just turned over there and turned the key off,
Oh.
and back down we went in the ditch. And that's the only time I can remember Mom ever driving.
Well, I would see why she didn't.
That's funny.
Love, I think,
You guys loved each other very much?
a lot.
How did you guys meet?
Well, the first time I ever saw Virgil, his sister was my 8th grade school teacher.
Oh.
And so she was going to have a weenie roast for us in the school out in the pasture beside the schoolhouse. We went out there, it was east of Barrett at that old Patterson school. And so she was had this weenie roast, and so Virgil brought up all the stuff, the weenies and all that stuff. And I thought, gee, he is kind of cute. And so then just,
Kind of just hit it off?
yeah, and then when we went, sometimes then on Saturday night or something, we'd go to town, and he'd drive, he had a car, see, and he'd drive up and down the street, and said I'd stand on the corner and wait for him to go by. And when we had one of those, I think I told you this before, an old Durant. Have you ever heard of a Durant?
Mm-mm.
Well,
Like a car?
Yeah, it was a car. It was a Durant, and it had the front doors come around. You open them from the front.
Mm.
Okay.
You know, like that.
Yeah.
And that's what we had for a car. But it was a good car, I guess. Kept us on the road.
Tell them about when you first got married, what you had and what you worked for. And
Oh, well, when we first got married, we went to Heck's used furniture store and got our furniture. And Virgil's dad went with us, and we picked this furniture out. That little table is down in the basement, that little
in the corner.
oak table in that corner. That was our first table and chairs. And we bought it at CA Heck's for $8. And
Whoa.
it's solid oak. And
What year was that?
Well-
what you got married in 19?
40.
Yeah.
And we got married in 40, so it had been a
And
long
it was
time
used
ago.
then. It was a used table and chair then, right?
Huh?
It was used then, right?
Well, it was in a
Used.
used store. He just had old used like they do nowadays, but it was just old. And then I can't think what else we bought. We must have bought other furniture there, because I know it just didn't come to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And Virgil smoked, and when we was married, and we go to the store, and his cigarettes and stuff would be like, 5-6 cents for a pack of cigarettes. It was just ridiculous.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's just
Now it's $5 or $6 for a pack.
yeah.
Probably more than that. Like
And then-
$7.
but he
They
quit
had
smoking.
refrigerator that they put a big chunk of ice in, and that's what kept it
was
cold.
ice box.
It was called an ice box, yeah.
Yeah, and we'd have to go to
Wow.
town and bring just a wooden. It was nice looking, just a wooden box there, and had a door open at the top, and then you put your chunk of ice. So we'd bring that ice home from town in these big blocks and put it in there, and that's what kept. And then I put our fruit down below, our food. But when we was first married, we didn't even have a refrigerator. We had a cellar, because we worked for a guy out on the farm. Virgil worked for this farmer, and he worked for $30 a month.
Gee.
That's what he got when we was married.
But didn't that include the house?
Yeah, oh yeah, we got the house, and of course Virgil's folks always usually kept us in meat because they was on the farm.
Butchered.
But it didn't take very much to get groceries back then. You
Well,
could get a big bill of groceries for $5-6.
Because you mainly raised everything.
Yeah.
Back then they had big gardens, and you canned stuff, or you put it, the meat and stuff you put in lard and stuff in a cellar,
Well, we'd fry down the sausage and stuff, but
and then keep it in that, and that's how they preserved their
but we
meat
had
back
when
then.
we lived our first house we had out east of town. We had a cave, and we had to go down, open that door, and go down this dark. It was dark.
We had our first TV. I was in grade school. I probably was in 5th grade, 4th or 5th grade, before we got a TV.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when
And
we
then it was a black and white.
when we saying out left me. Oh, when we didn't have a refrigerator, we lived out north of town at that time, because Virgil then started farming for himself, and we got out there and we didn't have a refrigerator or nothing. We didn't have no electricity, and so anyway, at that time these refrigerators and everything was rationed, and you had to put your name in to get one. So we put our name in to get one, and then whenever it'd come, your name would come up and they'd have one, and they'd call you. If they didn't call us, they'd let us know.
We lived out there.
Lived out
north
on
of
Roy's
town.
place. No,
Oh,
not
Roy's.
Roy's, out on Schaefer place. Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember-
we didn't have running water in the house either.
No. And when we'd take on Saturday night was when we'd come to town. That was our night to come to town. Well, we'd always take a bath,
I got to be first. It's not big though, but
Well, it was pretty big because we could just get in there and sit. And so then we'd fill that with water. And we had a cook stove that we had to heat the water on.
Mm-hmm.
And then put it in this tub. So then she'd get in, then we'd bathe Sandra, and then I'd get in, then Virgil get in. So I've seen a lot.
There was a bathroom there in the house that was built for a bathroom, but there was nothing in there because I remember Dad shaving in there.
It had that little pump there that you pumped the
Oh, I
water
didn't know what
in.
it was.
Yeah, a little thing, or just a little room back in there is all it was. And then when we moved out to Dawson, then he farmed there himself. And so anyway, we went out and we shucked corn. And
That was before I was born, wasn't it?
No, Sandra was little.
Yeah, but I don't think I lived in Dawson, did I?
Yeah, you was born when we lived out
okay.
in Dawson.
All right.
And so anyway, we'd go out to shuck corn, this wagon, and had a team of horses.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd go in the bank and down the row. And Virgil, I'd take the first row, and he'd take the next 2 rows.
Okay.
And we'd throw it in this thing. And Sandra was a baby, so we took her along. Well, she was older. And we took her with us, and then we took a blanket, and then as we'd fill the wagon with corn, we'd bring her up. So we've seen an awful lot of times. Hard times. We didn't have nothing. I think probably, sounds kind of stupid, but I think that I learned how to do was to sew. And I couldn't sew a lick, but my youngest sister, she could sew. And I thought, well, now if she can do it, I can do it. So I I don't know where I got the sewing machine, probably some old thing of Mom's. And I got a pattern, and I come home and I started sewing, cutting out stuff, and just learned by what the pattern would say. I knew absolutely nothing about sewing. And when I was sewing, I made all the guys. Mike was little. Not you. Mike.
Mike.
Was little. I made Ron and Jerry and Virgil all sport coats, and I made Michael a little sport coat. Well, it seemed like Jerry had one too, because we got his picture in it.
You said Jerry, didn't you?
Ron.
And Mark.
Yeah, Mark. Maybe that's who I meant, was Mark. So I made all those sport coats, and then I made, Kimmy was in a little thing in the TV and up in Lincoln, and I made her, I don't know how many outfits. I had one, she's going to be in it for a week, and I made her a different outfit for every week. She was just a little bitty thing, just a little chubby Kimmy.
It was a TV show she was on there in Lincoln.
Yeah, what kind of TV show?
Well, kids went and they sing these songs and they do different stuff. I can't think of what it was called now.
I don't know either.
It'll come to me. But anyway, she was one of the kids. What are you doing?
These tiles are dirty.
I know
Oh my
they are.
gosh.
Well, we've been playing with them forever.
Oh, we need to sterilize.
I think it's my time to draw.
No, did you draw, Matthew?
I did the first time.
Well, I ain't drawn yet.
I thought you did draw.
Oh,
Well,
I
how many
still
do you
got
have? Count how many you have.
14.
Okay, and then you draw. Did you
Well,
have toys?
A stick.
I tell you this story. We had corn cobs for dolls. And when we lived out north of town, we had a shed. I don't know what you'd call a wood shed, I guess, beside the windmill there for the water. We got the water. And so anyway, they had shucks and stuff in there and corn cobs. And the girls would take old rags and stuff, and I would dress up dolls. And that's what we played with. We never had none of these toys. That's the reason it just blows my mind when I see these toys these kids has got now. And back when we was little, we had nothing. And I know my dad, always at Christmas time, it'd be such a treat for us. We'd always know, and he didn't have anything, but we had, I remember one year he went and took a hog in and had it sold it for money to buy our Christmas. And he always got us a sack of those little haystack candy. You remember they're like a
That's
little haystack.
white in the middle and it's chocolate on the outside, and they kind of like that, flat on the bottom, and then a little round.
Okay.
I think they
Kinda,
call
Kinda,
it.
yeah.
He'd
Okay.
always bring us a sack of those. We'd get that every year for Christmas.
Aw.
Yeah. So.
But I remember playing out there in a pig shed when we didn't have pigs anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd go out and I'd clean it all out. And I don't know where we got that little doll bed. Well, Courtney still has it, or Harley now probably.
Uh-huh.
And I'd have all my dolls in there, and then I had a set of dishes, these little tin dishes, and I'd make mud pies, and I'd set them up on this, and they'd all dry, and
Yeah, I can remember that.
I made more mud pies, and kids don't know what that's like anymore to make mud pies, and I even played down by the creek. You wouldn't let your kid do that now for
Oh,
nothing.
not
No,
now.
I played, and I'd have to go out and bring the cows in. I wasn't that big. That's when we lived out there on not Roy's, but right outside of town here.
It's the old Schaefer place.
Go out and bring the cows in, and
Yeah, well, we didn't lock a door or nothing back then, It just.
she never knew where we were at. Down playing in the creek. And that's when I was out with my dad, and I crawled down the corn elevator. And when they was done for the day, they'd just always start the truck up and drive it away from the corn elevator. So, well, I was coming down the corn elevator from here, crawling down, and it started going, and I got my foot caught in it.
Oh God.
Well, we didn't go to the doctor or nothing, so you didn't do that back in those days, so I never knew if it was broke or not. But it sure hurt like hell. But I was always out with Dad. Well, I remember when it rained, like we got this 4 inches this time. We was on a partial mud road part of the way, and we'd have to park our car up the corner and walk in if we went somewhere. I remember that, and I hated that.
Oh, yeah.
Our biggest thing was we'd always pretend like we was asleep so they'd carry us in.
Yeah.
No.
So not from there, but when we'd get home other places. And so one night they says, well, we'll just leave them out here. Boy, did we come up
Oh
with that.
God.
The car, I mean, they both come to life in a hurry. Oh, we always had a chuckle over that.
I remember one time when Mom got sick and Dad took her into the hospital. She had appendicitis. So he took us to my grandma and Grandpa Ober's. And the next day he had to bring school shoes and clothes. He brought sandals, and it was the winter time.
Shoot.
Oh, yeah, it was something.
Yeah, so, things today, like when kids want everything that we had after we was started out, they want to start with what we had after years and years and years. But I started out with nothing.
Well, when I didn't have all that either. When Michelle was born, I didn't have all that. We had a hand-me-down, I think it was Jerry and Barb's, when, that metal thing that I changed her on. I didn't bathe her in it, but that's what it was. It was an old plastic thing, all rusty. It was an old used bed, and we didn't have new stuff like they think now. They have to have the whole room outfitted with everything matching. We didn't have that. Well, Jerry made, $90 a week, and that's what we had to live on. We paid $100 a month for rent.
Yeah.
So it didn't leave you a whole lot when you had to get groceries and car insurance and car payments. And yeah, it was tough back then, let me tell
Yes,
you.
it was. I went through a lot of tough times, but they didn't seem like they was tough at the time. Everybody was the same. We'd come to town and see our friends and stuff, and then we had, sometimes when we lived on the farm, we had pinochle parties and go to all the neighbors. They'd all come together and play cards.
It was,
Okay, who starts?
back then you used to, for entertainment, you visited your neighbors and friends and relatives and that. That's what you did for entertainment because you didn't have TVs and that.
I drew.
I drew.
You got your list done?
My questions are done. Matthew, you got any?
What?
You have any questions?
No, I didn't write none down.
He just kind of
Well,
asked
you've
some
heard
to go.
you've heard more than what you'd have written down anyway.
That's all right. It's cool to hear that. 'Cause
Huh?
you don't get to hear stories anymore like that.
Yeah.
No.
So it's kind of nice to know that.
Well, you don't realize what life was back then. Okay, my stories are over.